Hey everyone, David Steen here from Impactish. Today I'm joined by Brianna Welsh, co-founder and CEO of Reneum, and we're going to dive into impact certificates and how they're going to help accelerate the transition to green energy. Hey Brianna, how's it going today?
Not too bad. How are you?
I'm doing great, and looking forward to covering you on this week's episode of Most Impactish. Um, so, you're doing some cool stuff with Reneum, and we were talking a little bit the other day just about the impact certificate space, and how that kind of relates to a lot of what's going on in the climate space right now, which we know is really hot in climate tech, and just COP 27 just came out and everyone's talking about it. So I'd love to, maybe kick off the conversation just by first off, just getting to know you a little bit and how you kind of started Reneum, and then maybe a little, diving in a little bit to impact certificates.
Cool. So my background is in various forms of M&A for industrial and energy solutions. And I worked for a renewable energy developer, the CEO of which is my co-founder now at Reneum, for several years on the ground in emerging markets, particularly in Asia, to develop renewable energy, and sort of experienced, firsthand how difficult the opportunity cost can be for especially countries who are, rapidly developing, to select for, environmentally sustainable energy solution when energy, is simply not as available, and there's actually genuine energy supply crunches, happening right now. The problem really is around accessing capital and proving that the economic profile of renewable energy development is actually sustainable for investors and developers. And environmental markets have been kind of touted as a solution to support this this problem for almost 30 years now, actually exactly 30 years. Renewable energy credits, for example, have been kind of considered as a private sector version of a subsidy, which can send a price signal to investors and to developers to move into the space, but haven't really been fit for purpose in that they, are subject to their own structural friction and their own policy problems that have led them to be kind of unfit for actually moving the capital to project developers on the ground that really need that support. And so, having both worked at the renewable side, where we earned and originated environmental commodities like carbon offsets and RECs, and having also brokered those instruments myself, and my co-founder as well, we really understood that there's an opportunity to kind of leverage finance and capital markets for the best interest of the planet, but to do it in a way that was more efficient and more effective. And the blockchain kind of based decentralized finance ecosystems provide a really interesting opportunity to kind of circumvent some of the traditional problems that we have experienced. So Reneum was kind of born out of this idea that we can actually use finance for good. And it's sort of the only way that we're going to be able to move at scale the amount of energy that we need in order to reach anything close to net zero at any point in the near future. So that's where we come from, and that's kind of our thesis behind Reneum.
Awesome. Yeah, and it seems like there's a lot of focus and emphasis on the financing aspect of climate lately, and a lot of big funds and a lot of big investments happening recently in that space. And I've been kind of doing a little bit of research recently into that space, and into specifically what comes up is around impact certificates, and using these new kind of financing vehicles or methods to kind of get more capital in the space. And so yeah, wondering if you've got a perspective on that, and what your thoughts are on first of all what impact certificates are, and why they're important.
Well, impact certificates, I guess you could call a form of merit badges. We've been using merit badges as social proof for special knowledge or contribution or achievement forever. Boy Scouts, generals, pretty much everybody in every cultural sphere ever has used something like this, effectively a social symbol indicating some kind of action. And impact certificates are basically a blockchain-based or digital version of kind of a merit badge, effectively proving programmatically through hard code and transparent smart contracts that an action has taken place, or that a contribution has been made, or a commitment has been achieved, in a way that other parties, third parties, can actually verify directly themselves. It's I think we're going to see a lot more of impact certificates going forward outside of energy and environment. It can encompass sort of anything of any kind of social proof or any kind of impact at all. The way that the Web3 really contributes to this is sort of through the token economy, which is for the first time ever being able to really programmatically determine outcomes and to incentivize outcomes. So it's like incentive engineering, basically. Historically speaking, a precedent in the environmental markets would be carbon offsets or renewable energy certificates. That the challenge with these things is that they're not very they're not standardized and they're not democratized. So there isn't really like a globally recognized carbon offset. There are a few verifiers who have made strong names for themselves as being reputable, and there is a couple of rec equivalents as well, but they're not really available to individuals or citizens. They're not really, I'll say, represented or borne proudly by companies. And so unlike the kind of fair trade of the, there's no fair trade equivalent of the energy system or the environmental markets. And so impact certificates are hopefully going to become a solution for this space, to basically have its own recognizable label or concept that can be kind of appreciated, valued, earned, desired by others. So we are one of a form of impact certificates. I wear a green label specifically for renewable energy, but there will be, I believe, tons of different types coming out.
Yeah, and so a couple things to unpack there. One, maybe for the blockchain Web3 skeptics out there. So how important is that to this market? And I guess, could it exist without blockchain Web3? Is blockchain more of a kind of an enabler, a catalyst, so to speak, of kind of accelerating this kind of market? Because I think it's been talked about for many years now, but it just kind of hasn't materialized yet. I'm curious about your thoughts there.
Yeah, I mean, impact certificates based on the blockchain are verifiable, publicly verifiable, right? It's like indisputable proof that an event has occurred, and it's permanently logged onto the blockchain, which is public. So, there probably are ways you could do this with a centralized system, but there isn't a way that, at least to my knowledge, that would be completely democratized and decentralized in a way that everybody can trust everybody else, basically. So, Reneum doesn't have to be the purveyor of truth here. The owner of a Reneum certificate can demonstrate that they have actually made real energy impact via our, on-chain record, which gives the proof of provenance that basically means that we're not actually a trusted third party anymore. We're like, there's a trustlessness available. I think the kind of enforceability and immutability is really important. So it's, the transparency of blockchain is going to be kind of critical to impact certificates really being successful. Yeah, I think it's almost imperative, quite honestly.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And I think, we're already starting to see how blockchain is kind of becoming a big enabler of the carbon markets, for example, even though I don't know that it's necessarily proven itself there yet, but at least the funding would dictate that it's a big upcoming trend. And yeah, one of the things you said, around it sort of being, incentivizing action and incentivizing, these behaviors. Curious, it almost seems like it's a chicken and the egg problem of like, you've maybe have a lot of these different types of impact certificates coming out. And, it seems like now there needs to be ways in which consumers or whoever on the other side, actually sees value in collecting these or some sort of like ecosystem around the actual demand of these products. And curious, how you see that materializing and maybe what needs to happen there.
Well, I think there's a couple things that have to happen kind of concurrently. Obviously, one of the big challenges with the global rollout of carbon markets is that time and again, carbon offsets have been proven to be environmentally immaterial. I think that there are very legitimate ones, and I think the carbon market is going to be completely intrinsic to our global transition, as well as the kind of parallel rec market. But the measurement, reporting, verification, the MRV side of things for carbon in particular is really complex, which means that unless we can find some kind of standardized approach to measuring and to proving the environmental outcomes, no one's going to accept these as sort of a true social status symbol, because it's not reliable, it's not trusted, right? You need to have that real measurable impact. The renewable side of things is a little bit easier, because to prove a renewable energy plant is existing and generating clean energy, it's like, it's all public data, government reported or utility reported, which are usually owned by governments. Obviously, satellite imagery can kind of generate information very, very easily. So we have a bit of a simpler process on our side of this problem. But so that's one big kind of headache that I think the whole space has been really navigating through for quite a while. And I actually really do believe that blockchain is a supreme example of a solution that, or probably the only solution, I think, that can do this in a way that the masses can actually trust. So I think that's going to be intrinsic. And we're kind of seeing every legacy carbon provider out there now either discussing the transition to blockchain or already announcing that they're doing kind of native blockchain-based impact certificate equivalents. So that's the movement we're going in. In terms of how it becomes sort of globally accepted and honored as like that real proof of kind of impact, or something that people desire and that they care to hold on to, I mean, that's a whole different beast, because like any kind of cult, community or brand equity, establishing that requires, again, like the trust and the proof that there's just something behind it, there's some weight behind it, but also making it kind of cool and desirable is it's a different sort of business set of problems, I would say. So that's something that we're thinking about a lot. And how do you partner with people who are relevant in certain, key opinion leaders, thought leaders in their respective domains? How do you partner with kind of renegade groups who have really, pure intentions, and making sure that you're associating yourself with companies or movements that are reputable and cause oriented? How do you cement that? It's a whole different thing. So that's something that we're thinking about a lot, and how to establish and reinforce that relevance and significance will be something that is an iterative process. And there probably will be one or two or three companies that come out on top on that, but I don't think there'll be hundreds of these solutions. I think there'll be a couple of main brands, all defended by different solutions and different assets beneath them. So it's like you'd have one, Apple, and beneath that you have several different types of technological solutions in terms of just brand, I'm talking.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I think that's true for a lot of industries. And yeah, carbon markets are kind of a big rabbit hole that we could dive into. But something that, I'm just interested in, because it was on your website, is something called the REC or REC. And, you kind of talked about that being different than a carbon offset. And, this is something I personally haven't heard much about. So curious, what that is, first of all, and then, how that differs from a carbon offset.
Principally, they have similar mechanisms. I mean, they're both intending to direct finance to climate related projects. That's their purpose. And they are verified usually by some kind of auditor or equivalent. The real difference is that RECs are focusing just on renewable energy. Carbon can incorporate renewables, but generally is more focused on nature-based solutions. So sequestering carbon rather than producing a solution that avoids pollution. The kind of a different way of approaching the same thing. But a REC is issued to renewable energy producers to represent what's called their environmental benefit. It's basically like the greenness of creating green energy. And if you think about it like a subsidy or a surplus that producer earns, the point is to make it more economically attractive to other renewable producers, investors, capital owners, to move into renewables rather than to move into some kind of fossil fuel equivalent. So the benefit to RECs over carbon is what I mentioned before, is really more around the measurement and verification. It's quite a straightforward mechanism to identify, to quantify, and then to tokenize. And so that, especially right now, I think in this energy kind of moment we're having, particularly in Europe, making sure that we don't lose steam ahead on the energy transition and get swallowed by, energy demand issues and end up kind of, circumventing to the cheapest price rather than to the best solution. This is one of the vehicles that can really help with that. So that's what we are focusing on. It's specifically around generating more renewable energy.
Awesome. So basically it's an incentive for the energy transition to accelerate.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Definitely.
Cool. Awesome. And we're going to keep it kind of short today, but would love to just get a little sense for for people following this, like how can they participate in Reneum? Where can they follow you? Where can they learn more?
Well, we're actually launching our beta platform in a few weeks, probably the beginning of December. So anybody who is sort of crypto native or comfortable enough to play around with smart contracts and tokens, we'd love to have as many individuals, thought leaders, people who care about the overall impact come and test out the product. We're basically calling in as many testers to kind of red team our solution as possible, make sure that what we end up delivering to the market is the most impactful and the best solution for all of our stakeholders' needs. So anybody who wants to kind of join that beta testing process can certainly reach out to me or to us online directly and request an invitation for that. We're going to be doing a few rounds of these tests for the next 3 months or so, and the main product launches in probably end of Q1, which will be open to the public, and that means that anyone in the world can buy a green certificate from us, directly funding renewable energy. So that's kind of the whole purpose of Reneum. Our website has a contact us directly. Goes to my email as well as some of our team members, so you can reach me directly there.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that with us today, and I'll put the website in the description here, and we'll keep in touch. I appreciate it.
Perfect. Thanks. Have a good one.
You too. Thanks everyone for tuning into Most Impactish. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and join us next week with Kabir Parker, our other host, to find out what's most Impactish.